Guys, UFC 272 is this weekend. Covington and Masvidal are going to step into the octagon, and DraftKings Sportsbook has got a real knockout offer for all of you new customers. Listen carefully. Bet just $1 on the main event, and you're going to get $100 in free bets no matter what happens. It could be a first-round knockout, a majority draw, a split decision. You are going to get paid, and yes, you heard me correctly. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still feel the thrill of UFC 272 with DraftKings free-to-play pools. Everyone can enter a free pool with $10,000 in prizes. Just answer a handful of questions, like how long do you think the fight will last, and who's going to walk out the winner. Follow along to track your results. Here's what you need to do right now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up with the promo code Sonnen. Throw down just $1 on the UFC 272 main event to get $100 in free bets, no matter the outcome. That's code Sonnen at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. I have seen guys get into the fight game. I've seen them go on down to the commission's office and fill out their paperwork and get their promoter's license. Then they go try to find a few bucks and put on their first event. I support those guys, but I see them all the time, and they all are an expert. They're all an expert in a business that they've never been in, that there's no school in the world you can take a class in. There's no library on earth you can check out a book in. This is, you've got to learn it. You got to get involved. You got to know you're paying for an education. You got to know you're going to burn through some money to make some mistakes, to learn what you need to do. But all of them have one other thing in common, which is they've come to the conclusion that they're experts because they've listened to every Dana White interview that Dana's ever given. I've had people that say this to me, and it embarrasses me. I get uncomfortable. I get that uncomfortable feeling inside, and I look at them, and I do my best just to get away from the conversation and get off the topic for one simple reason. The master's never given away the keys to the kingdom. Every single interview Dana does, he knows somebody's watching him and he's not looking to smart them up. But if you do truly understand the business and you juxtapose that with every single Dana White interview, you do know the times that the master slipped up. For whatever reason, whether it was an accident, whether he wasn't prepared, you will, boom, that's one of them. I had this experience. First ever UFC Fighter Summit. And Dana brings everybody in. And I'm just, look, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know why we're there. I'm looking at the expense of 556 athletes plus interpreters coming from around the world. Real easy flight for me. $99 from Portland to Las Vegas. But there was guys that came in from Sao Paulo. There was guys that came in from Moscow. There was guys that came in from Germany. There was guys that came in from Japan. All over the world. 556 guys. Do you have any idea what the travel fees on that are? And everybody got their own room, a beautiful room at the Red Rock, I might add, and everybody got their food paid for. And we all get a gift bank. And I'm just sitting back and doing the math. I'm going, this is costing about $2.5 million. Something here is important to Dana that he's going to relay to us. I don't know what it's going to be. But I remember thinking that, and I go to the fighters meeting, and I'm in the very front row, and I got my notepad out, and I got my pen, and I'm ready to go. Everybody else that came in there was still hungover from the night before. I don't know what's about to happen, but I know the expense and the effort, and something here he's about to hand us. He wants us all together so he can say it one time. So we had all sorts of guest speakers. You got lessons in taxes. You got lessons on performance-enhancing drugs. You got lessons in legality and management. Dana himself walks into the room one time. This is the moment I'm waiting for. He paid for this to bring us here to tell us something. I heard every word that came out of his mouth. I went and applied every word that came out of his mouth. My whole career was different. There are times that he's going to either give you information because he's decided that you need it, or he's going to let his guard down and make a mistake and a camera was on. But he just did it today. One of my favorite fights that Dana ever promoted. So it's not one of the biggest fights. That's not the word that I used. I said one of my favorite was Matt Hughes versus Ricardo Almeida, because that match made no sense. At that time, Ricardo Almeida, one of the great grapplers ever, fantastic MMA fighter. Matt Hughes, pound for pound greatest of all time, champion. I don't think it was a title match, so maybe he didn't have the belt right then. Match didn't make any sense. And Dana got asked about it one time, and he told right down the barrel of that camera the exact truth, and nobody questioned him again. So why are you making this fight? Dana said sometimes there's two guys that just want to fight. That was it. And I remember that to this day because there was an absolute truth on it. And a lot of people are looking and go, why are we seeing this fight? This isn't a number one contenders fight. Matt Hughes wants to get his world title back. Beating Almeida doesn't get him closer. Almeida's not going to be fighting for a title next, but if he beats Matt Hughes, he's got to be considered for it. It's just one of those things where, hey, put the rankings aside. Put all this aside. There's an issue and a problem here, and these two guys want to fight the end. Now, Dana did it again. He got asked by John Morgan why this fight is going to be such a big deal. Talking about Covington and Masvidal. Dana gave three reasons. Hatred, popularity, storyline. I'm going to change hatred to emotion. I'm going to keep popularity. I'm going to include storyline. But I want to tell you, if you put that into the master's mind and it's got to compute out the other side, these are the three things that the promoter just told you he needs. Emotion, popularity, and storyline equal promotion. That's what that equals. You have to be able to evoke an emotion. The only thing that Masvidal and Covington have in common is they both lost their last fight. When is the last time anybody has returned to main event coming off of a loss? When is the last time two guys in a main event of a pay-per-view were both coming off of multiple losses? 2 for Masvidal, 1 for Covington, but you get it. You add those together, it's 0-3. We get it. There's your answer. They were able to invoke an emotion. In their particular case, that happens to be hatred. Terrible word. If my mother's watching this, she told me at a very young age, don't ever say hate. Don't ever say hate, it's too strong. But hate is a word, and sometimes it is appropriate. And right now, it's hatred. You then look at popularity. Now, what Dana's talking about, of course, is your ability to draw. Who knows who you are? We're going to have 11 fights this Saturday. The arena is sold out. The arena did not sell out for 10 of those fights. If you wanted to jockey and mess with this card in any which direction, if you put anybody on this card at the top of the bill and you remove the current main event, this venue does not sell out. So we understand how important popularity is. We understand what name recognition is. You then talk about storyline. The storyline in this case, 2 friends, no longer friends, 2 training partners, no longer training partners, 2 roommates, no longer even want to see or visit with each other. We get that. That happened to all of us, didn't it? That happened to you. You had a friend somewhere along the way, could have been all the way back in 3rd grade. Could have been freshman, sophomore in the high school. Something happened and they're not your friend anymore. You get that story. Relatability. You get that. And the mere fact that this is going to be the biggest fight of 2022, even if it's just for the first quarter, it will be the biggest current fight. But when you have the heavyweights that had the greatest storyline in the history of the heavyweight division, extremely beautiful records, not coming off losses, 2 belts enter that ring, 1 belt lead. When you have a story like that in this fight, that the only thing they have in common is 0-3, you start to see where those resumes become less important, where the rankings that you're all fighting over and bickering every day and using as a way to get out in hard work. The rankings have a byproduct like everything else. No good deed goes unpunished. We give you guys rankings to be more in line with other sports. You then use that ranking as a way to not go out there and do your job that you're called upon for 3 times a year. And somehow, society and the public within this space has let you do it. I was coming up in this sport in the 90s. It did not make a damn bit of difference. We didn't even do weight classes back then. You said you're a tough guy. You said you're a tough guy. There's the ring. Get in there and agreed upon time. Deal? Everybody said deal. Nobody talked about money. Nobody talked about sponsors. Nobody talked about rankings. We didn't even talk about the fact that they were separated by 50 pounds. So to watch you have all of those things, then we're trying to get as many matches as we can. We had a guy named Jeremy Horn, who in 1 year was something crazy. I might be wrong on this, but in 1 year had like 48 fights. There was a month where he had 7 fights. I realize commissions, I realize where maybe that isn't something to look at now, but that's what we used to do back then. We used to see, we would be competing with each other to see who could get more competitions. Jeremy Horn did a fight one night on a Friday. Won the fight, gets in a car, he's the passenger, someone's driving as he's sleeping. They get him 2 states over, he fights again Saturday night. But this was a mindset back then. We all looked at Jeremy, it didn't matter just that he won those fights. We were all just very impressed that he could get on a docket, that he logistically could figure out how to do it, that he cared about his sport and his craft enough to take the risk, take the challenges, and double book himself. A promoter could not do that now. And you're going to think, oh, well, the commission wouldn't let him. You'll be partly right. A promoter couldn't do it now because the sumbitch isn't going to show up the next day. He's going to have a fight on Friday. He's not going to show up the next day. You get guys that from the time of me, I'm sorting myself here, Jeremy Horn and I were the same time. You get guys like us, you're going to separate 2 fights by 2 days. We're in heaven. We used to do tournaments, 2 and 3 guys in one night. So now you have our mentality that you're going to separate it a day and a night's sleep. Oh my God, of course I'll sign up for both of those. Or in Jeremy's situation where 1 month he fought 7 guys over 30 days. Of course you're going to agree to that. We were used to fighting 2 and 3 guys in the same night. So it's just a different mentality. As I tell that story, I don't necessarily expect you to agree with Jeremy and I, that we did it right. I think you're a lot better spot that you're in now. I think the commissions and the running to regulation has all been done for very good reason. I don't begrudge that. I just share with you, it's a very different mentality. Very different. When you have these storylines within fights, that's what promotion is. I will beg you until I'm blue in the face. I will hit you over the head with the same thing every time. If you were an athlete that feels you've been under-promoted, your next thing is to tell me what that means. And if you say I didn't have enough photo shoots, if you say I wasn't given enough interviews, if you say I wasn't marquee and my name and face weren't on enough posters, I'm going to then tell you you don't know what promotion is. Promotion is one thing, storytelling. The great promoters are great storytellers. The great storytellers can look within any scenario and find how we got here. And then they can articulate that to the audience. The big fights aren't always the best guys. It doesn't always have the shiniest trinket up. It's the story that gets over that resonates. It's very important that you hear what Dana's saying when he says it to you. He just handed John Morgan the keys to the kingdom. What is the greatest promoter in the world looking for? In emotion. What's he looking for? Popularity. So that when he tells the story, people know who in the hell he's telling it about. Those are the 3 keys. If you're in the gym today, you're working on your little fight career, and you're working on turning your thumb over as you cross block, you're working on the wrong stuff. You should be able to learn a punch on day 1. You should be able to learn a combination by the end of month 1. But that's the sport, and that's important. And you put 2 to 3, some guys 4 hours a day into that sport. How much time did you put into the business? The world's most successful promoter just told us the keys to selling out T-Mobile Arena, which he successfully did. Nowhere on here does it say get a black belt. Nowhere on here does it say bench press 225 pounds 20 times. Nowhere on here does it say learn your Muay Thai. The audience will decide. We will pick who's at the top of the bill. We will decide what we want to say. Everybody else's job is to listen. But for the athletes that want to be put in a very good position, it's important that you at least know the ingredients needed within the recipe.